Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another really very interesting show. We have invited back Andrew Havey, mystical scholar, author, and translator of Rumi. Last time we had Andrew on, we talked about sacred activism, a subject dear to both of us. Deep in our hearts, we understand the principles of and the importance of, the deep value of this perspective. Well, right behind that and looming over and around that is the beauty and the wisdom of the words of Rumi. And so today, that will be our focus. Andrew, who has translated Rumi and has spent just countless hours poring over the magnificence of his words, the wisdom and love in his words, will be speaking with us today about this beautiful subject.
Lovely to be here.
Great to have you.
In celebration of Rumi.
Indeed.
I can't imagine my life without Rumi.
You have been a student, a deep devotee actually, of Rumi's for many years.
30 years.
Oh,
30 years. And every year my feeling for him grows deeper, and every year my gratitude for what he's given me grows deeper.
So that means you started reading Rumi when you were about 2.
I wish. No, 25. I was at Oxford and I had a wonderful tutor who introduced me to Arbery's translations of Rumi. And although I didn't understand anything, I realized that there was in that poetry an immense presence. But let's begin with the poetry.
Why don't we? Would you please read and we'll just set the ambiance accordingly?
After you.
Oh,
why don't
really?
you read? Mm-hmm.
Oh, Andrew. All right. This is also from, let me say, a well-bookmarked, dog-eared copy of Andrew's book, Light Upon Light, Inspirations from Rumi. So that's still available, I'm sure. This is entitled, Each Moment. Each moment from all sides rushes to us the call of love. We are running to contemplate its vast green field. Do you want to come with us? This is not the time to stay at home, but to go out and give yourself to the garden. The dawn of joy has arisen, and this is the moment of union, of vision. O King, master of this time, awaken from your drugged sleep. Straddle the horse of joy. It is here, the moment of our reunion. The drum of the coming true of promises is beating. The pathway of heaven is being swept. Your joy is now. What remains for tomorrow is ash. The horses of day have put to flight the armies of the night, and heaven and earth are full of the purity of light.
And this one. Love's horse will carry you home. The whole world could be choked with thorns. A lover's heart will stay a rose garden. The wheel of heaven could wind to a halt. The world of lovers will go on turning. Even if every being grew sad, a lover's soul will still stay fresh, vibrant, light. Are all the candles out? Hand them to a lover. A lover shoots out 100,000 fires. A lover may be solitary, but she is never alone. For companion she has always the hidden beloved. The drunkenness of lovers comes from the soul, and love's companion stays hidden in secret. Love cannot be deceived by 100 promises. It knows how innumerable the ploys of seducers are. Wherever you find a lover on a bed of pain, you find the beloved right by her bedside. Mount the stallion of love and do not fear the path. Love's stallion knows the way exactly. With one leap, love's horse will carry you home, however black with obstacles the way may be. The soul of a real lover spurns all animal fodder. Only in the wine of bliss can her soul find peace. Through the grace of my beloved Shamsuddin of Tabriz, may you possess a heart at once drunk and supremely lucid. Well, we're drunk, and I hope supremely lucid.
Quel bouquet, I tell you.
It's amazing.
Really. So
Such
beautiful.
astounding beauty and such purity of spiritual knowledge and such passion and such unbelievable sincerity all together. That's really what characterizes him.
And a succinctness as
Yes.
well. I mean, this is one of the things that he's world renowned for,
Yes.
to say so much in so little.
Yes, I think he is speaking from superconsciousness. I think the divine took him to that miraculous place where he was totally suffused with divine love and divine knowledge and divine peace and divine passion, but still able to communicate to human beings what he knew, what he was feeling.
Yeah.
And that is a almost
human
unique
language.
position. In human language. And language that can radiate out its meanings to anybody at whatever stage of awakening they are. That's what makes him so extraordinary, I think.
If you think, Andrew, that this was written in the 13th century,
Yes.
and here we are in the 21st enjoying its bouquet.
Yes.
I mean, there are many other poets who have come along.
Well, many, but you know, what Rumi is a unique figure in the history of humanity because he combines three things that I don't think anybody else has ever combined. He combines the realization and the soul force and the grandeur of majesty of understanding of a Buddha or a Christ or a Muhammad even, with the extraordinary philosophical understanding of a Plato or a Kant. He combines those two things with the literary gifts of a Shakespeare.
Yeah.
This has never
Exactly.
happened.
That's
So
right.
you
This
have
is
a
special.
Shakespeare who is also a Buddha Jesus, who is also a fierce and clean and clear spiritual philosopher, and that fusion of three unbelievably gifts at the highest alchemical level is what lies behind this poetry.
Exactly.
And one reason why it not only has lasted, but actually now is enjoying a renaissance on a world scale.
Exactly. Just that phrase in the poem you read, she may be solitary, but she is never alone.
Right.
I mean, does there
And a
can't
heart at
be a
once
heart
drunk and
that
supremely
doesn't
lucid.
get touched? Right, exactly.
Right.
I mean, it's just a delicacy of distinction that you could just sup from and savor, you know?
Absolutely.
Let's speak, because there is such depth and richness, as we were saying earlier, and teachings inside the poetry. We were speaking earlier about covering three basic tenets, if you will, of Rumi's poetry. And then we'll carry on in a subsequent show with a few others.
Right.
Can we come back to
let's
that?
just talk initially about why is his poetry coming back at this moment?
Yeah.
Why is this poetry undergoing such an extraordinary renaissance? I think there are three main reasons, and they're very powerful. One is that although he's a Muslim, and he was a very serious Muslim and a very practicing Muslim, and he's inconceivable without Muslim mysticism and without the example of Muhammad.
Well, he
in
is
the
really
Quran.
considered to, in a sense, be very much certainly one of the birthers of the Sufi.
Well, the Sufi mystical tradition was birthed in the 9th century. He was born in the 13th.
Right.
And there were 400 years of really extraordinary Sufi masters
Is that
and mystics
so?
who were the kind of soil from which he flowered. And in many ways, he's the rose of glory of that tradition. But his roots go very deep into Atta, for example, and Sadi, and Rabia, and Al-Halaj, these great names. And of course, Muhammad himself, who was a very great mystic. So although he was a Muslim, and one cannot forget and shouldn't forget that, the kind of mysticism that grew from his realization was one that embraced all paths. All roads, he said, lead to the Kaaba, the black stone at the core of the Muslim vision.
Yes.
And again and again, he says, whatever path you are on, come to me because I am living in joy and I want to share this joy with you. So that, I think, is the first reason why the poetry is having such a tremendous, because it's all embracing. Anybody on any path, whether you're a Buddhist or a Hindu or an agnostic or a Christian or a lapsed Catholic, you can feel that this man is speaking your language of love.
Well, they say that the Sufi is really the embodiment and the heart of all religions,
Yes.
and is not a religion one at all.
Well, that's debatable. I think that it's a mistake, actually, to see the Sufi mystical tradition separate from Islam, because that
it is
actually,
certainly the soil from which it sprang.
well, and also Muhammad's realization was a total one, and the Sufis drew their very deepest inspiration from Muhammad's own example, his life, and the secret sacred sayings, the hadiths of Muhammad. One of them, which he said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." And another one, he says, God says, speaking, "I was a hidden treasure and wanted to be known." So there are these cryptic but very luminous insights into Muhammad's
Christian
realization.
to me, however.
Oh, no, there's nothing Christian about it, because in the center of Muslim mysticism, of Muhammad's mysticism, was a vision of the creation as being a manifestation of God's mercy, and we'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
So I think the first reason is that he has an all-embracing vision, a path which accepts all other paths.
That
and
touches
people
upon,
really need that.
that has
now.
a universal spirit.
Right. The second reason...
Cross-religious.
Exactly. Intercultural, interfaith, everything.
Right.
And that is absolutely at the core of our modern impulses.
Pan-religious.
Well, right. And we're all looking for a universal language of God. And he has found it, and he speaks it. The second reason is, I think...
And by the way, just to add to that, we are in a time of transcendence, of outer identification.
Well, I wish we were. We're in a time of fundamentalist fanaticism, actually.
Well,
but there are some people, thank God, who are waking up.
as
and
we
realize,
know, God speaks through paradox. So, agreed. There is that rise of fanaticism and
Well, it's
fundamentalism.
threatening the world.
Clearly.
Right.
Understood.
Right.
At the same time, there is another group
Right.
that are going beyond all outer identification.
That's right.
It's
And that's
just
what Rumi
interesting
is
the way
speaking
these
to.
two coincide. That's why I was raising the
No, you're
point.
quite right. Absolutely.
Okay. But please go on.
No. The second one is that, Rumi is a great philosopher. Rumi, it could have been a great teacher in the fashion of Ramakrishna or Jesus or Socrates, but he chose to be a poet, or God chose him to be a poet. And I think that's another reason for why he is so beloved, because he doesn't preach at us, he doesn't tell us what to do, he doesn't bring us a series of commandments. What he does is represent in language the deepest ecstatic and tender and wild inner experience. And he represents it as a lover of the divine beloved.
Exactly.
And so every lover, which is all of us, because we are all desperate for love and desperate to fall in love and desperate to experience love at all the different levels of love, every human being who is a lover can identify with him. And I think that's a clue to the core of his appeal.
First of all, he's using art as the expression of his ideas. That touches the heart and soul of most everyone.
I don't know whether they were ideas. I think that Rumi transcended ideas. I think Rumi was living in the divine experience. And he used art as the most natural language to express the plasticity, the vibrancy, the fullness, the sensuality, the ecstasy, the passion of authentic divine experience. Because authentic divine experience doesn't have rules. It has a vision and a depth of inner feeling, which art is actually wonderfully equipped to transmit.
And but since you mentioned that he is in also the philosophical richness of a Plato.
Right.
There is also the divine idea.
There is.
That
there
is
are,
being expressed through his being.
That's true. I see what you mean. He's incarnating the idea with the capital I.
It wasn't that he was
intellect.
seeking to be, and I think this is what you were picking up on, Andrew. He wasn't seeking to be didactic through art.
Right.
That wasn't it. It wasn't a calculation.
No.
It was a being himself.
Well, in a sense, I think somebody at his level of realization becomes one with what you could call the divine intellect, the mind of God,
Right.
the heart-mind
Exactly.
of God. And
Exactly.
that heart-mind is installed and speaks naturally
Yeah.
through his work. And
Right.
that's
Through his
why
life,
it has-
actually,
through his
is what
life
you're
and
saying.
work. Right.
Exactly.
And the third reason I think just springs from the second one, and that is that if you were to characterize Rumi's vision, it would be very much like Jesus' vision. It's a vision of tender, burning communion of love between beings of all kinds.
Yes.
It goes beyond rules, it goes beyond laws, it goes beyond concepts, and in a certain sense it goes beyond religion. It is a vision of how human beings and animals and nature can live in tender, burning compassion and reverence. And I think at this moment, when
What I hear
the
you
word is so
saying,
threatened,
what I hear you saying is communion.
communion.
That there is an
Exactly.
inherent, intrinsic, organic communion, and there's
Exactly.
the recognition of that interconnectedness.
Well, and communion is a very profound word. When you think about it in the Christian context,
Sure.
you have communion, you drink the wine. And,
Right.
you know, Sufis,
Exactly.
for Sufis, the wine is divine ecstasy. So it's, you drink the wine of divine ecstasy, and that initiates you into the sacred relationship that you have as a lover of the beloved with everything that is. And it's to live this communion that we are born. And it's to experience and savor and rejoice in this communion that we live.
It was sacred for Dionysus as well.
It was, and there is a Dionysiac aspect of the Sufi revelation.
Yeah.
Not, I don't think, in the excesses of Dionysus, but in the sense of that Dionysus brings ecstasy.
Mhm.
This illumination of communion
Sure.
brings ecstasy.
The divine erotic, if
The
you will.
divine erotic, yes.
Right.
The
But you were-
eros of the heart.
Exactly.
Right.
But you were saying something I think is so vitally important, Andrew, about the relevance of this to today when you were speaking about the idea of communion
Right.
with the animals, with the trees, with the earth.
Right.
And
With the communion
carry
with
on
everything.
with that thought.
Well, what I'd like to do, I think it would be wonderful, is if we really saw Rumi's message now as having 7 aspects. And that, you know, we thought that we might do 3 for this one, and then we could plunge into that, because I think as these aspects unfold, we will uncover all the different aspects of this communion.
Yes.
So the first one that I think is so important for all of us, and that's really at the core of his vision, is that he woke up through his relationship with his spiritual master, Shams of Tabriz, to the supreme secret that had been voiced centuries before by perhaps the first great Sufi mystic in the great line after Muhammad, Al-Hallaj, who was actually hung, drawn and quartered in the main square of Baghdad for proclaiming An al-Haq, which means I am the supreme reality. But what he was saying, of course, was not that Al-Hallaj was the supreme reality. He was saying that he was crying out in ecstasy at the unveiling of the profoundest secret of all that is enshrined in all of the mystical traditions, that at the core of us burns the eternal divine consciousness. And Rumi's
it is
poetry,
here.
It's here.
It is
it's
here.
inside us. We
Right.
inherit it. It's the original blessing with which we come in.
Exactly.
And at this time, Mitchell, when we are threatened by such despair and chaos and meaninglessness and desolation, the praise and ecstatic celebration of this divine identity in Rumi's poetry and his shameless glorying in it on his own behalf, but on the behalf of all of us,
Exactly.
is something that we need like oxygen for our survival.
Right.
So
Right,
I thought
right,
I'd
right.
ask you to read one of the poems of divine identity.
You're
and
surprising me, Andrew.
and then I will read you another one.
Beautiful.
But this one is so beautiful. These are 6 lines which contain the meaning of life.
Oh,
And they
so quickly.
are so
That
beautiful.
underscores that point I made earlier of succinctness.
Oh, God.
God bless him. The wine and the cup. The wine of divine grace is limitless. All limits come only from the faults of the cup. Moonlight my glasses here, please. Moonlight floods the whole sky from horizon to horizon. How much it can fill your room depends on its windows. Grant a great dignity, my friend, to the cup of your life. Love has designed it to hold his eternal wine.
See, that's so amazing, because that line, moonlight floods the whole sky from horizon to horizon, actually refers to the supreme mystical experience. In what the Hindus call Nirvikalpa Samadhi, when you wake up completely, this vanishes. The whole world disappears into divine light, which is
the world
diamond white
it.
light. Yes. So that is always going on. This world is always a manifestation of that divine light. And how much that light can fill your room depends on its windows. How open are you? Are you prepared to give up your concepts and your ideas of what God is? Are you prepared to open your soul totally to the beloved? If you are, then one day you will be given this supreme ecstatic experience and know that there is nothing here but God. As the said in the Shahada, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha, there is no other God but God. And that's the mantra, of course, that Rumi used.
Of course.
And this is what that state feels like. Here he is describing it, and here he is speaking from within it.
Exactly.
And one of the ways in which Rumi wrote was to cling onto a pillar. He didn't write anything, actually. He got into a state of trance, and he got into a state of ecstasy. He was in a deep spiritual immersion, and then these torrential golden words would pour from him and they'd be taken down. So you imagine him dancing in this ecstatic state.
That's a good point, though, that he was really carrying through the oral tradition.
Oh, yes.
Inherently.
Yes.
And it's just that people penned it.
Yes.
And
but what
that's
was
how
so
we have
extraordinary
it.
about the way in which he did it is that it came out in flawless couplets. Because he was connected with what the Hindus call Paravak, the eternal word, and it sculpted itself in this perfect literary way through him. It's an amazing...
The local manifest.
The local manifestation. Well, here is the local manifesting the absolute divine. And this poem is really his poem about himself, but I think it's also his challenge to all of us to stop hiding in our small identities and to claim the rapture and power of our divine identity. Define and narrow me, you starve yourself of yourself. Nail me down in a box of cold words, that box is your coffin. I do not know who I am. I am in astounded, lucid confusion. I am not a Christian, I am not a Jew, I am not a Zoroastrian, and I am not even a Muslim. I do not belong to the land or to any known or unknown sea. Nature cannot own or claim me, nor can heaven, nor can India, China, Bulgaria. My birthplace is placelessness, my sign to have and give no sign. You say you see my mouth, my ears, my eyes, my nose. They are not mine. I am the life of life. I am that cat, this stone, no one. I have thrown duality away like an old dish rag, and I see and know all times and worlds as one, always one. So what do I have to do to get you to admit who is speaking? Admit it and change everything. This is your own voice echoing off the walls of God. This is your own voice echoing off the walls of God. I love the way that poem ends, and he just says, okay, you think this is just me. No, no, no. I am speaking as the I in you. And that I is eternal, it's deathless, it's strong, it's pure, it's peaceful and passionate. And the whole point of being on this earth is to learn that truth and then to embody that truth.
Absolutely. I and thou are one.
I and thou are not two. And the mystery of the relationship. Because it's one is, we have,
Yes.
Yes. The second
in the
aspect,
timeless moment is, that is so awesome. That is so beautiful. It's
really something that
ineffable,
we will never, ever,
truly.
ever recover from. I think the beauty of that secret that we all carry. The second aspect, I think this is so important, is his vision of the creation, because we're killing the creation because we simply don't know what it is.
And we do not hold it as sacred.
And we do not see it as sacred. And I wanted to read just a short excerpt before we part of this amazing, amazing vision that he had. If I can find it. You can.
And as you're looking, it just deserves to be said that the richness of the language, the understanding of the human as a container of the sacred. I was thinking actually when you were talking about the cup and the windows into the cup is the Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception.
Right.
And when they get cleared and opened, so too it emits the light.
Exactly. And one day maybe you'll have no windows, but just be glass, like Philip Johnson's Glass House. Perhaps that's what a band like Rumi really is.
It's interesting. Right.
This one is his vision of the creation as an epiphany of God. You know, so many of the religious traditions tell us the world is an illusion, but the world is not an illusion. It is a glorious and sacred expression, or epiphania,
Yes.
epiphany, flaming out of the glory of God. Adore and love him with your whole being, and he will reveal to you that each thing in the universe is a vessel full to the brim with wisdom and beauty. Each thing he will show you is one drop from the boundless river of his infinite beauty. He will take away the veil that hides the splendor of each thing that exists, and you will see that each thing is a hidden treasure because of its divine fullness. And you will know that each thing has already exploded stilly and silently and made the earth more brilliant than any heaven. At his summoning, all things have sprung up and made the earth more magnificent than an emperor wearing a robe of the most resplendent satin. If we could see the world like that, we would do everything to preserve it.
Absolutely. We began with Rumi and we complete with Rumi. Bless you, Andrew. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week, and stay tuned for a continuation of this as we continue to explore Rumi during this year of his 800th anniversary.